Okay, I think we'll get started. We've only got a couple of people here, but hopefully more will show up and this session will be recorded so they can always view it later. Welcome to this webinar on Introduction to Gravitino. My name is Justin McLean and I am the Community Manager for Data Strata. So as well as being the Community Manager for Data Strata, I am also involved with the ASF. I've been involved with the ASF for almost 15 years now. Currently, I'm an Apache Software Foundation board member. I'm also the VP of the Apache Incubator and Assistant VP of Legal Affairs. I've been an ASF member for almost 10 years as well. And in my role at the ASF, I do a lot of work in the incubator and mentor projects. And I've mentored almost 20 projects over the last decade. And as a result of that, I end up on a lot of project management committees of ASF projects. So, I've got a good idea about what goes on at the ASF. Before I got this job, I was VP Trading Services at a company that did hosting for Apache Kafka and Apache Cassandra. And I've also started up another open source organization as well. But that's enough about me, because this is not what you came to hear. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. This session will be 30 minutes long and there will be time for questions. I would be great if you could just leave questions to the end. If you can put the questions in the chat and we'll get to them in the chat after the 25-30 minutes have passed. Also, it's a good idea just to keep yourself on mute until we come to that questions, because this session is recorded, and I'd like to do as little editing on it as possible. So, but if there are any technical issues, also report those in the chat. And the Q&A session, which comes after, won't be recorded, so you don't have to worry about asking any potentially embarrassing questions or silly questions. There's none of those. So what we're going to cover in the next 30 minutes is the welcome, which is where we are right this very second. And then I'm going to give you a short introduction to Gravitino and, what it can do and why you should use it. And then we're going to have some demos and actually look a little further into it. So we'll have a look at the Gravitino UI. And we'll also have a look at some of its query features and how it can join data between different data sources. We'll also have a look at the REST interface. And then we'll have a bit of a wrap up. And then, as I said before, there will be time for some questions. So first off, what is Gravitino? So Gravitino is an open source project. It was initially created by Data Strata, but we now have a lot of other people contributing to the project as well. And if you look at modern architectures, you can see that there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of bit of different software involved. And all of these bits of software have their own way of storing metadata or catalog information or registry information. So the whole point of Gravitino is to try and unify all of that and put it all together in one place. And then add some features on top of that. So you can sort of see where it sits in the hierarchy there. And we'll go on to, what sort of problem does it solve? So one problem is you've got all these different programs that you're running. You've got your data stored in different cloud vendors. You've got your data stored in different regions. So it's hard to actually see what you've got. And this is one of the things that Gravitino can help you with. The other thing is, because you've got this data scattered everywhere, it's very hard to query your different data sources, and a lot of time is spent moving data around, changing it into different formats, and that can take up a lot of time, and also can be expensive, particularly if you've got a large amount of data that you need to transform and move about. This also means that there's no single source of truth for the data. So you're never quite sure whether you're using the latest set of data or whether this is the right structure, or there's been something that has gone wrong in the transformation of that data. And also Gravitino, we're focusing on improving performance. So one of the features that we have is if you do queries across multiple regions or multiple cloud vendors, it's going to work out what is the smartest way to run this query and how much data it should move about, and try and limit or minimize the cost and increase the performance of that. Going forward, we're also going to look at how you can secure data, particularly if you're moving data between regions. There may be government legislation that applies, and you can't move sensitive data across, or private data across country boundaries and things along those lines. So we're going to be looking into to try and solve that problem as well. So this is sort of the problem that you can get to with. This is sort of the problem that you can get to when you're using all of these different services and projects, and they're all doing different things, and they're all dealing with data in some way, shape, or fashion. But there's not a lot of connecting them together, and you have to keep moving data between places and places. So it ends up where you have these data silos. And we want to try and move away from data silos and give people access to all the data that they already have. And that's what Gravitino does. It enables you to be able to link all of these things together. Now, currently we don't support everything that's on the screen here, but we're working towards supporting most of them. And hopefully with the community's help, we can support more of them as well. Okay, so now it's time for the demo, and the first thing that I'm going to do is have a look at the Gravitino UI. So this is what I've done here. Is we have a thing called the playground, which is a whole lot of Docker containers that start up Iceberg and Hive and Postgres and MySQL, and also Gravitino. And this is an easy way for people to get started, so they don't have to set up and install all these things themselves. So this is the Gravitino UI, and when you start up the playground, it comes with a little bit of data that's already set up inside it, and it will have created a meta lake for you. And in this meta lake, there are several catalogs, and each of these catalogs is on a different technology. For example, we have a Hive catalog, and we can see there that this has a sales database in it, and this has some tables in there that you would typically see with sales information. So it's got a products table, it has a customers table, the products belong to categories, and you can see the sales of the products, and you can also break that down by store. Now you'll notice here that we're just storing the metadata. This doesn't actually give you access to the underlying data. It just gives you the structure of the catalog and the tables within that catalog. We've also got a Postgres database here, and this contains some HR information. So we have information on employees, and including their performance, their addresses, contacts, and other details along those lines. So in the Gravitino UI yourself, we can, for example, create a meta lake. So I'm just going to create one here called test. And yeah, there's not much to see there. So, but inside that, we then can create a catalog. And so currently we support relational style catalogs. We are working on file-based catalogs, including things like S3 and so forth. And you can also select the provider. So currently support Hive, Iceberg, MySQL, and Postgres. So we could create, for example, MySQL catalog here. We just need to enter the basic information of how to connect to that database there, and you're good to go. So let's delete this though. So currently the UI supports meta lakes and catalogs. It will in the future support creating tables and as well. That will be in the next release. But let's have a look at something a little more interesting now, which is the data. So this is dbeaver. It's just a database client if you're not familiar with it. And in here, I've got it set up to the Postgres database. And we can have a look, for example, at the employee data. So you can see there's a whole lot of employees there with some basic information about them. And we've got the same with Hive. And I've set up a Trino connector here. Let's just go and run some queries. In the sales database, and the sales information is stored inside the Hive catalog, we can run a query like this. So what this is doing is it's selecting the location and the total amount. And you can see if we just run that, that works as expected. But that's, this is nothing special. All you're doing is doing a query within a single database. But where Gravitino can really help you is that it can do queries between different data sources. So here we have, in this next query, we have an employee, HR database where we've got an employee table and an employee performance table. And we can join that with the sales database in Hive to find information, important information out. For example, let's have a look at their average performance rating and total sales. That's something useful to know. And if we run that, you can see that the results get returned, and you can see the average employee performance rating and how much sales that they've done. And we can still do even more complex queries. Go a whole lot of queries here. I'm not going to go through them all. Let's just find an interesting one. So here's again another one joining between the HR table and the sales table, and this is trying to find the state with the most sales. So if we run that, you can see that it returns the results, the sales by state, and you can see that Nebraska ended up with the most number of sales there. Gravitino UI actually works off a REST interface. So we can also programmatically call that REST interface just by using curl or anything else. And I'm just going to do some of that now. I'm just going to copy these commands rather than typing them out. So, for example, we can get a list of all the current Metal Lakes. And you can see here that returns an array with a Metal Lake called Metal Lake Demo in it, and a little bit of information about that. The same information is displayed in the Gravitino UI. We can also create our own Metal Lake. So if we do that, you can see that it returns information saying that it's been created. If we then list the Metal Lakes again, you can see that this time that it has returned an array with two Metal Lakes in it. The original one, Metal Lake Demo, and the one that we created called Metal Lake Test. And you can do all sorts of things with the REST API here. You can create tables, you can delete tables, you can create catalogs. Actually, I'll show you how to create a catalog now. So creating a catalog requires a little more information. If you notice there, when we're requesting information, like most REST interfaces, it was just a GET call. But when we're trying to create something, it's a POST call. So in this case, we're creating a POST call, we're passing along some formatted JSON, and we just give it all the properties that create this catalog. And you can see that catalog's been created. And just to double sure that this is working correctly, I'm going to go back to Gravitino, and you can see that in the UI here that we've got the Metal Lake test, and inside that there's the Postgres test. And if we expand that out, you can see it's auto-populated it with all the information that was in that Postgres catalog. So you don't have to go and create all the tables manually. It'll actually seek out all this data and populate it for you, so you can just see what's in there. If we go to employees, you can see the structure of the table there. So I'm running actually a little ahead of time. I've probably been speaking a little quickly, but that's good. That gives us more time for questions. So just back to our slides here. So I've given you a brief overview of Gravitino there. And I've shown you that it makes it easy for you to be able to discover what data you have, and that you can make queries across your different data sources and gain deeper insights into your data quite easily. You don't have to move all your data around. You don't have to transform it from one form to another. You can just use the data that you already have using a query language that you already know to very easily discover things about your data. Now, the demo that I've just gave here, I have everything running on my laptop, but you're not limited to doing that. We have tested Gravitino running in Google Cloud, Azure, and AWS, and in multiple regions. And you can do queries between different cloud providers with different data sources, and you can also do queries between multiple regions. And it works exactly the same way as what I've just shown you there. I've also given you a bit of a taste of the REST interface. Now, the Gravitino UI actually uses the REST interface under its hood, but you could use that interface in your own programs. And we also have, which I haven't shown you, a Java API. So you can use that Java API to also integrate to any Java programs that you have. We've started down the path of working on Gravitino and adding features to it, and we're continuing to add more features and so forth. The next steps that we're working on are trying to solve data governance and security issues across multi-region and multi-cloud. And the best thing about Gravitino is that it's open source. We have a GitHub repository. It is under a permissive license, the Apache software license, so you can use it with very few restrictions. We open sourced this back in December, and we have a growing community. We've had more than 30 people make contributions to the project, and they're people outside of our company. And we're seeing that growth accelerate. So it's great that you came along to this webinar, and hopefully you can be interested in being part of the Gravitino community as well. So what's next? We're going to have another webinar probably in a month's time. Just depends on demand. And in that webinar, we're going to have a look at what the new features were in the 4.0 release. We just released 4.0 yesterday, and we'll also have a look at it in a bit more detail at the future roadmap of where we think the project will grow and progress. As with all open source projects, this is sometimes a little uncertain because we don't know what community features are going to be contributed, or what the community thinks is important to work on or not work on. So I'd be really interested to hear from you in what you want to try and see, and I'd love it if you could give Gravitino a try. So now we have time for some questions. I can see there's been some chat messages going while I've been talking there. Okay, well, if there are no questions, I suggest you can come and visit our repo and give us a star if you like what we're doing. And if you have any other questions, please contact me at justin@datastrata.com. So thank you everyone for your time, and I will see you hopefully at the next webinar.